Hello everyone, this is Jeff Harwady. In this video I'm going to discuss using the Force.com migration tool with the Cloud9 Salesforce IDE. The principal reason for doing this is when you're trying to work in a collaborative team-based environment as a developer and you're using Git for your source control. And the main issue you run into using Cloud9 is that they don't have the SRC folder, so that way your file structure doesn't match the file structure that, say, people using Maven's Mate or Eclipse are using, and that can be problematic. So I'm told that this is being looked at as we speak, or I should say as I speak, at the time of creating this video. But in the meantime, I love Cloud9 and I want to use it. So this is my workaround, which, besides fixing the issue I just described, I find that I like it anyway because I get to work more at the command line, and it's a little bit quicker for me than using the point and click approach. So we'll see if you guys like this, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to make an Acme workspace, and I already have a developer account. By the way, if you want to follow along, you'll need to have a Salesforce developer account. You'll also need to have your security token reset, or at least knowing what it is. All right. So I'm going to hit create Salesforce workspace. Then I'll put in my acme.com credentials. Okay. Great. And now Cloud9 is creating this workspace for me. So as I said, we're going to be taking a different approach. Instead of using Cloud9 sort of as is, we're going to be using the migration tool here, and we're going to be kind of going around this basic file structure. So I'm going to put this away. The first thing I'm going to do is go here and turn off the automatically synchronize, okay, because I'm going to be doing my own deployments using Ant. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to double click package XML, and I'm just going to turn everything off. Right now, when I save this file and when I push this button here, what will happen is that Cloud9, and sometimes you have to push, oh, there it goes. Cloud9 will then just get rid of all those folders for me because there's nothing in the package XML to be pulling down. I'm also going to toss this README file by right-clicking and then just deleting. Okay. All right, great. At this point, I'm going to go Alt-T, and that'll pull up a command line or a terminal for me. And then we'll start doing some commands here. So we're going to make a directory called SRC. And then we're going to move package XML to the SRC directory. Okay? Great. So refresh my file tree, take a look, and we've got this here. Now this is going to be a lot more in line with, say, Maven's Mate or Eclipse people that you're working with here, right? All right. The other thing I forgot to mention is you do need to have some kind of Bitbucket repository created to follow along with this as well. I'm going to be using just a test Bitbucket account that I have set up. So we're going to initialize the Git repository, and then we're going to add a remote, and then you'll just want to put in your Bitbucket or GitHub or whatever it is that you're using. Okay. And then we can clear that out. So now we've got Git connected to our workspace here. And the next thing we're going to do is bring in the files that make the Force.com migration tool work, right? So we're going to go to the Salesforce menu and go to Force.com Setup. And love that Cloud9 has that built in. Really easy to get to your org. It uses that single sign-on. So from here, I am going to go to Tools, click on Tools, and then they have the Force.com migration tool. So this is a great thing that Salesforce does for you. If you haven't played with this, you really should, because they give you sample XML files. They give you really everything you need to get started, and it downloads in this nice zip file here, right? So I'm going to click this, which will unzip this file. Looks like I already had this from before, so we'll do this. And then here we go, right? So it gives us a sample, and it gives us the ant.jar file, and it gives us these files here. So these three files are the ones that are going to be critical to making this work, right? Great. So I'm going to close this window. I'm going to close this window to get back here. If I go to the File menu, I can actually upload local files into my workspace, which is really handy. So I'll click Select Files, and then I'll go into this folder here. I want this one, and then I also want these two build files, right? Great. Okay, so we want to make sure that these files are outside of the source folder. Then I'm going to go into the build XML, and I'll make one quick change. So I'm going to just get rid of these characters here and save it. Okay. Now I'm going to go into the build.properties, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in my Salesforce credentials, right? So as I said, to follow along, you need to have some Salesforce credentials. So that's making sure you know your username and password and security token. I don't mind putting this in a video because it's a dummy org, and I'm going to be resetting my security token at the end of the video anyway. But this is kind of what you're looking for, right? So we'll just do, for simplicity's sake here, we'll just copy and paste this stuff right into the XML file. Okay, so there's the username, and then we'll double click on this, and then here is the password. And then we want to do, if you've used Data Loader, you already know this, you want to go ahead and paste that security token at the end of your password. Because it's a developer environment, we can still use login.salesforce.com. This is all good, right? So we'll save that, put that away. Okay, now I'm going to go into the build XML, and what I'm going to do after this here, because you really do need this above stuff. You can change this project name if you want to. It really doesn't matter. What I'm going to do is make a comment, and I'm going to call this, custom targets. These are things that I'm using. Salesforce, if you have never used this before, Salesforce gives you all these different tools. They call them targets. These are things you can study and things that, depending on what circumstance you're in, can really be helpful. So it really doesn't hurt to leave these in the file. But what we want to do is make our own, quick custom targets that we can use to make this practical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the retrieve unpackaged stuff here, and then I'm going to paste it right here. I'm going to get rid of this make directory thing. We don't need that. And then what I'm going to do is, instead of calling it retrieve unpackaged, I'm just going to call it retrieve. Okay. I'm going to keep everything as is. When I look over here at the retrieve target, instead of retrieve unpackaged, which would be some separate directory, I'm actually going to just use my source directory, because that's where all my files are that I'm going to want to retrieve. And then I'm actually going to change that here as well. So the map that it's looking for to retrieve will be the package XML, which is in the source folder, right? So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, and then I'm going to grab the, let's take a look here, deploy unpackaged. Okay, so I'll copy that. And then right underneath retrieve, I'm going to paste this. And again, we'll get rid of the unpackaged. We'll call this deploy. And then we'll go over here and we'll do, again, src, right? Because if we're going to deploy, that's where the files are that we're going to deploy. I will then save the build XML file and put that away. Okay. Now that's the setup. And it takes, I think, a lot longer to verbally explain it than to just do it. But you saw what I did. I cleared out the existing folders by updating the package XML. I made a source folder, put that package XML folder in the source. I initialized an empty Git repository and added a Bitbucket remote to it. And then using the tools, Force.com migration tools zip file that I found from Salesforce itself, I uploaded these 3 files into my local workspace with file, upload local files, and then made some tweaks to the properties into the build XML. So at this point, what we can do is we can tell our package XML file what it is that we want to retrieve. So let's go ahead and double click that, and I'll just check Apex classes, and I'll save. All right, and so we're going to test our retrieve, and to do that, we'll go into Salesforce, Force.com setup. I'm going to launch the developer console. Okay, and then I'm going to just make a fake Apex class. I'll call this a test. Okay, so now there's a sort of a fake Apex class there. Close this window. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm in the workspace folder, not in the source folder. And I'm going to type ant retrieve. So it found the build file. It starts a retrieve script, goes through, and there it is. Now, if I refresh my file tree, go into classes, you can see a test has shown up just as it is in Salesforce. Okay, let's go ahead and do something. We'll just do this, and then we'll add a comment, just something basic, right? And now we're going to test the deploy. So I'll do ant deploy. Goes through the same kind of thing, and it looks like it found the Apex class, that one class that we have, and it's in progress. And it says deployment succeeded, which means that I should be able to go into Salesforce and then go to the Apex classes and jump right into this here, and there's our comment. Could have done that with the developer console as well. There it is, right? Cool. So there you go. We've tested that the retrieve and the deploy works. And the advantage here is that you're free to really develop however you want to. You can develop using the fantastic tools that Cloud9 gives you with double-clicking this and turning on Apex and using the great syntax highlighting that's there. If you're kind of old school, or if you're getting into Vim, something I've just discovered in the last couple of months, there's really nothing to stop you from jumping into the source folder, the classes folder, and then using Vim to go ahead and edit your code this way as well. And if you know all of these shortcuts, again, I'm still learning, but this is actually a really, really fast way to go. And certainly you can do things like set number and get your line numbers and then sort of go to town. So what this does, I think, is besides fixing the source folder issue, is that it really just gives you a lot of freedom to develop at the command line. And it really gives you the freedom to use Git, use migration tool, all really at the command line, and sort of use Cloud9 in whatever way that you wish. I still believe that Cloud9 is the best Apex emulator, if you will, as far as the syntax highlighting. And I also think that it's got the best interface if you want to use Bash in a web browser. I haven't found anything that's better. You can have multiple Bash windows open, so you could have a Bash window for your deploys, a Bash window for your Vim, a Bash window for something else. But this approach really gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of Well, it just gives you that ability to work outside of the basic structure. Something else that Bash has is it has the force.com command line interface. So I can do force help. Yep. So you don't have to install this as well, right? So I didn't have to install Ant. I didn't have to install Force CLI. So these tools, they sort of give you here as well, which is really fantastic, and just makes it so easy to hop in and get started. If you haven't used Force CLI, you can use this to look at logs. You can put logs in Vim if you want to. You can test all your Apex classes all right through this interface. And I find that this is so much quicker than trying to run unit tests in, say, Eclipse or other IDEs that are out there. So sticking with the command line tools that Cloud9 gives you, and now having the flexibility to use the migration tool to really have whatever file structure you want, I think makes this the ideal environment to do all of your Force.com development in. If you have any questions, please post to the Cloud9 community, and I'm happy to answer those. And happy coding. Thanks for watching.